Hello, welcome to this tutorial where we are going to make a game called Dragon World. So Dragon World is a platformer that has lots of different characters in it, and those characters are going to be animated, and so we're going to have our main player fighting against enemies and collecting coins and trying to go from level to level. So we have this template here that at least gets us started with some platforms. We got a player that has a little idle animation. So the load sprite atlas function is taking care of loading in the image and handling all those details. So I just want to jump into getting my player to start interacting. So in this first part, we are going to get our player to move. Now with platformers that are dealing with animations, this movement is a little bit trickier than in some other tutorials. All right, so we're definitely going to be inside the scene game function here. And I think it's going to be good to label that ending curly brace. So I'm going to label this as close game, so I kind of know that that's where the end of the game function is. All right, so this would be a good place for me to write some code. So I'm going to handle key presses and all that. So I'm going to say on key, I think down is going to be good. So on key down for pressing the right key, right arrow there. So on key down quotes right, comma, parens, arrow, curly braces to make an arrow function. All right, so what happens when I have the right key down? Then I say player dot move. And right now I'm just going to say like 150, comma 0. So move positive in the X direction and don't move at all in the Y direction. So that should get my player to move a little bit. Yep, so there we go. All right, so I also want to get the animation to go in. Now it turns out if I put using that run animation, because the player does happen to have a run animation, um, and I know that by looking at this atlas.json, the hero sprite has all this information here, a few different animations, like idle, the one that it's showing us right now, but there's also a run. So I could use that run animation. If I did it on key down, it would continuously start that animation, so I wouldn't quite see it finish. So I actually want to use both on key down and on key press. I'm going to call on key press as well for quotes right, comma, parens, arrow, curly braces. And then on key press right, player dot play is the function that lets me start an animation. So player dot play quotes run. So it will start that run animation then. All right, so you can see him starting to run there. Now he keeps running even if I stop moving. So that's where another key function will come in. And I'm all getting this from the Kaboom website. All right, let's try this again. Kaboom.js.com or kaboomjs.com. All right, so everything about keys I can just discover on this site here, use their reference. It's good for us to get used to that. So if I just search for key, I have on key down, on key press. I also have on key release. So that is going to be another very useful function. On key release, quotes right, comma, parens, arrow, curly braces. So on releasing the right key, I'll say player.play, parens, quotes, idle. Return it to that idle animation. Yeah. So he does the running while I'm running, but then he stops for idle. Now, if I make it move left, I suppose I could copy and paste everything, but just know there's a slightly different way to handle these. Um, But thinking about moving left, I also am a little uncomfortable with just having a hard-coded number right here. I would rather that be a variable. Instead of just saying 150, if it could be a variable, then it's going to be more flexible the rest of the tutorial. So maybe the player gets hurt, so it has to slow down. Maybe the player drinks a speed potion, so it gets to speed up. Or I just want to change this number. It's going to be better if it's a variable. I could make a good old variable right here, let speed equal. I'll show you something a little different. So when you define these game objects like player equals add and all these components, you can add custom properties too. So I'm going to say comma braces, and it's inside these braces that I can add custom properties like speed or whatever else. And I'm actually going to do it in the same format as all of this stuff is. So this stuff is called JSON data format. How between curly braces you can define key and value pairs. So you put the key inside of quotes, like just what's the name of the property, like width and height and slice x and anims and whatever. Then colon, the two dots, and then just the value for whatever that is supposed to be. That x is 128 or speed is 150 or whatever. And then it can keep getting deeper and deeper too. Like anims itself is more JSON data. That also includes idle, which itself is more JSON data that finally gets down to some numbers. But we're going to use this JSON format to make our speed property. So inside of here, I'll just say quotes speed, then colon, and I'm going to use that 150 number I had before. All right, so now I could say something like player dot speed. It is a property that player has. So I can replace, instead of saying player dot move 150, I can instead say player dot move player dot speed. Dot speed property now exists because I did this here. Now just know I don't, technically speaking, I don't need these quotes right here. I could just make a good old JavaScript object. But I'm going to stick with the pure JSON format that does require quotes, even though this isn't technically JSON. But I'm going to have those quotes there. But now I have a dot speed that actually exists. And that is going to be helpful for when I handle on key down left. So on key down left, well, how much I'm going to do player.move. Player.move negative player.speed. That's all the changes. And then if I drink that potion or I get hurt or whatever, this is all going to just update. Now adding in left and right here, I could copy and paste, but I want to show you something else. The on key press function, as well as on key down and on key release, can take in a key, or it can take a key array. So I could actually give it just an array of these keys. Now, if you don't know what an array is essentially just a list of things. So I have like here, I have a list of strings inside of this array. Now, we've been using these with the add function, but it is kind of weird. But just know that it's just a list of things, and you separate them by commas. So for the on key press, I'm actually going to give it an array. I'm going to put right, quotes right, inside of that array. But now I can just say comma, quotes, left, and then everything else is going to work out. And I'll do the same thing for on key release. I'm just going to copy that array right there. I'll delete this single string and replace it with an array that has those two strings, the right and left. So now it's going to handle the movement and the animations for both left and right. So what it's kind of saying is on pressing a key that is within the list right, left, then this stuff will happen. So the arrays just make a group or a list of things. Now, what is kind of weird at this point is the player kind of moonwalks when you go to the left. What I would like to see is that the player like turns around a little bit. So there actually is a way to do that because we created the sprite component. Then I get a nice feature. Now, if I tried to search for flip, it wouldn't show up. But if I do Control F flip, there actually is something there. So the sprite component that we get has a flip X and a flip Y, whether I want to flip those images. Um, and then I have to give it a Boolean. Booleans are true or false. So when I press the left key, I would like to flip it. So on key down left, player.move, player.speed, sure. And then player.flip X parens because it's a function, and then I need to give it either true or false. So it's going to be true. If I press the left key, true, I do want to flip the player. Yeah, so now I turned around. And then he moonwalks in the other direction. So just do the same thing for right. On key down right, player.move, player.speed, player.flip X parens, but false, because when you move to the right, you don't want to flip the image from its original. So you just got to set that back to false. Right, now he turns both directions. So in the future, we'll want to do jump, but this is good enough for now for the movement.